Okay, we're now ready for the second half of the program. Speaking of the program, I do want to bring your attention to, of course, you have all read the program, but you have seen in there that we had several generous sponsors that made this event possible. They are listed in the program. They were on the slideshow that occurred when you first came in. We will recognize them on our social media and on our website and so forth. But I just would like to ask you to give them all a round of applause. I want to also recognize that many of the board members of LRJF are here today, and I want to say just thank you to all of you. And if you want to give a heads up so everyone knows who you are, thank you, board members. And of course, thank you to all of you who purchased tickets to come to this event. If you have not been here before, you may be wondering where and how the barbecue is actually going to happen. The barbecue actually takes place outside. So we will be moving from this room after the poetry is done outside. Once again, that will be the door that we exit out of. You go out to there's a covered patio, great catered barbecue. There's plenty of seating out there to sit at the tables and eat your barbecue. If it's just uncomfortably hot for you, you're welcome to come back into the air conditioning. That's up to you, but there's plenty of seating out there for everyone. And during that part, I promise I will make very few announcements. We'll just go out there, we'll, party and celebrate and have a barbecue, but that is when we will be doing the door prizes. So have your ticket in your pocket, and toward the end of dinner, we'll announce the winners of the door prizes and give you your door prizes. So I was out front, and I was excited to see how many people were coming up buying pottery. That's great. There will be more opportunities to do that after, and just a shout out again to Indian River Clay for donating all that to us. That all benefits LRJF. So thank you for purchasing that. Okay, a man who probably really needs not much of an introduction, and I'm not going to give him much of one because someone else is going to give him a longer one in just a few moments, so I'm just going to go ahead and announce Sean Sexton.
Welcome. Can you hear me? Good. That's a good thing. I'm going to introduce our first poet, Silvia Curbelo, who I've known for probably 20 years, I think. And we met in St. Augustine at the Florida Literary Arts Coalition Conference. To tell you a few things, we want to make the most of our time, so I want you to know in the programs there are wonderful bios of all of our poets. Silvia was born in Matanzas, Cuba, and emigrated to the U.S. with her family as a child. She is the author of 3 other poetry collections, in addition to Falling Landscape, which is, these books are just beautiful, beautiful legacy books. They're very fine, and they belong in any good poetry library. The Secret History of Water and Anhinga Press. We're both Anhinga poets originally, in addition to Falling Landscape. And she has a chapbook, The Geography of Leaving. She has received poetry fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Florida Division of Cultural Affairs, the Cintas Foundation, and the Writer's Voice, as well as the Jessica Noble Maxwell Memorial Poetry Prize from the American Poetry Review. And it's high time we had Silvia Curbelo come to the mic.
Good afternoon. Wow, this is such a love fest. I'm having the best time. I want to thank, again, everybody. The Laura Writing Jackson Foundation, Sarah and Ren for making the arrangements, and Jackie for providing the hotel for me. So it's been awesome so far, and there's food. All right, I'm going to read a couple of new poems, and then I'll go back and read some pieces from my 2 books. This first piece is a brand new poem. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. Someone say no? No. Okay. So I'm pretty much a city girl. I lived in Tampa since I was 17. And so the bad thing about cities is when you look at the night sky between the smog and the reflection from the lights, you don't get the full effect until you drive, 30 miles out into the country, and then you see the full spectacle of the night sky. And so this is a poem about that, and it's called How to Count Stars. Riding the Amtrak Silver Star to West Palm, you lean against the window glass and think about the nights running their course, how light and dark inhabit the same sky. In a world of ruin and consequences, stars are the one constant, bright buttons on an extravagant dress you'd seldom wear, the faraway reminders of living our lives now. Stars like bullet holes, artifacts of bone and mystery, billions of tiny cracks opening to God knows where. Your own face, a planet in some random universe, as you sit back with your hands spread open in the lavish dark. Stars scattered like seeds, mimicking the body's scraps, as if one by one the rain had spit out all its teeth. Keyholes, pinpricks, scars, alibis for loss and longing that make you turn towards some accidental Mecca, west of everything you ever thought you'd want. Stars calling out to you, blinking their delicate Morse code, ticking off a tender message. Say something back. Say anything. Thank you. All right, as was mentioned in the introduction, I was born in Cuba, and I've lived in the U.S. since I was 11, and you've probably seen in the news lately that Cuba is going through a horrible time right now. They were getting 80% of their oil from Venezuela, so they have no gas, no oil, no electricity, this horrible food shortages. And I have some family there that I've been talking to. I've been able to send some care packages. Excuse me. But anyway, Cuba's been on my mind a lot lately, and so this is a new poem that I wrote about my hometown of Matanzas, which is a beautiful port city. This is called Where I Come From. My hometown is a boat and a silence, a small city of 143,733, give or take. It's a river winding down to a stream, white stones made smooth by memory. It's the slow lift and pull of blackbirds in a changing blue sky with the wind bearing down. My hometown is a pile of wet leaves on the side of the road, still bright green. It's chain link and barbed wire. It's a prayer in the eye of the storm, rusted bicycle and a stone bench. It's cheap rum in a side street bodega, and a counter where the old lawyers lean to drink, where a priest lifts his glass in the air to confess there's nothing to be done. It's a childhood of railroad tracks and thunder and a short ride to the beach, sand on my pillow, sand in my mouth. My hometown is a dream of white horses and the crush of rain in the alley where I still hear your voice, flower pressed in all the books, a window, an anchor, a stairwell, a long kiss in the shadow of a doorway, blank sheet where I still write my name. Thank you. So choosing poems for a reading can seem like an arbitrary thing. You have a couple of new poems and you want to read those, and then there's a couple of poems that people request or that you think work well. But I find that most of the time, once you've chosen all your poems, there's usually a theme that emerges. So for me, the theme seems to be Cuba, I guess, because it's been on my mind so much. So this is a very old poem from my first book. It's for my father, who passed away about 30 years ago now. This is called The Death of the Tango. He was a huge fan of tangos, particularly Carlos Gardel, the famous Argentinian composer and singer, who died in a plane crash in 1935, I believe. So anyway, this is The Death of the Tango, and it's for my father. Ghost of birds flying over, ghost of solitude, of a line being cast, ghost of the last furtive embrace, and piano notes drifting out the windows of the Hotel del Lago, ghost of the wine glass, ghost of the unread letters and the violin with its entourage of sadness, ghost of the red dress pitched across a chair and the blue raincoat with its torn silk lining, pocket full of sheet music and postcards from the front lines, ghost of warehouses and train stations and black coffee in all-night restaurants, ghost of the next to the last cigarette, Carlos Gardel smoking under an awning in the black and white rain with night fading behind him, ghost of my father, ghost of writing this down. So through the years, I've written several poems about my last day in Cuba. I was 11 when we left, as I mentioned. And this is one of those poems. I guess it's just a theme that keeps coming back every few years. I write another poem about it. But this is called A Short History of Goodbye. The grass tells nothing. The sky sits in its simple cage of days. No sound like the past blowing through. Only the wind knows what's at stake here, moving into the scenery, running at the mouth. Hush, say the daylilies, shaking their heads a bit. Silence is its own music, soft as dirt. No one notices the orphan drift of clouds, the wingtip scar of the horizon, balanced between nowhere and this. Hush, whisper the azaleas. But nothing's as wordless as a young girl standing on the lawn, waving her handkerchief. Good. And this next one doesn't really need a setup too much. It's called This Rain, and it's pretty self-explanatory. This rain. Grass this green keeps its own secret. It splits the world in two the way love does. This rain and the terrible sweetness that comes after. Beside the broken house of our childhood, wildflowers bloom, tiny embers in an empty field. Whatever rain comes is an afterthought, but it's always enough. I can stand perfectly still in such a place and hold that moment open. Not green, but the memory of green. The simple fact of grass on a hillside. A secret becoming larger with each telling. But nothing should ever be that open or that green. A flower turns away for a moment. Something is falling inside the rain and we can't hear it. And green breaking the stem. Thank you. Okay, so this next poem takes us to my teen years, which happened in a small town in Iowa. My dad had been an attorney in Cuba. We moved here in '69 and lived in Miami for a year, and the only work he could find was as a janitor in a hotel. So he did that for a while, but then he found, through a friend, a position teaching Spanish in a private high school in a small town in Iowa, so we picked up and went. And we lived there for 5 years. And they were formative years for me because I was from ages 12 to 17, so it was pretty important. This poem is about the sister of my best friend, who was a beautiful girl, who sadly died of anorexia about 3 or 4 years after this poem takes place. But I chose it because I think it kind of captures that time in my life. It's called First Snow. In this car years ago, in this old town, weeds choking in the fields, a sky like nothing I've seen. Close your eyes. Every street, a new language. The land empty, land of birds disappeared, even the sparrows. Every porch light on Maple Street still burns for you. I'm wearing my new coat with silver buttons that throw little specks of light on the dashboard. I'm hunched over the car radio, your sister flipping through the dial, looking for the next song, for the next window facing west. In another month, she will outgrow you. I'm 17. I'm falling through the cracks of myself. The world as we know it, the first snow of the year. We drive past Spain's store and past the high school sliding all over the road. We turn off First Street and down Twits Hill with the brakes locked, and your sister cuts the lights. I can hear you laughing. Your long hair blows across my face in perfect strands, beautiful as a loom, the one thing I want to remember. Football banners are still tied to car antennas. Once a year, the Tigers play the Knights. We're running down the street, making ourselves small to fool the wind. It's snowing hard. Down at the main tap, the boys notice you first. Your hair falling in wet strands down your face, covering your eyes. Every night, a vast landscape. A love song blowing out the jukebox on somebody else's coin, so slow you can almost dance. It's warm inside, but I'm keeping my coat on account of the buttons. A row of orange lights flashes on and off in the back over the Budweiser sign. It's the end of October, and every sad pumpkin in the world wears a grin. Even a fool could close his eyes and pull a wish out of thin air. I bum a cigarette from the first fool that smiles at you, and I take it outside. The snow falling all over that Ford Galaxy makes me want to drive forever. A drunk out in the parking lot is singing Blue Moon. Not one star in that sky. And I'm going to close with a poem it's one of my favorites because it's a poem I wrote for my daughter. It's also an old piece, but this is kind of cool to go back and read old poems I haven't read in a long time. My daughter's 35 now. She was 5 or 6 when I wrote this. And she was going through that weird stage where, kind of charming, kind of annoying, where everything was a question. It's like, why is the sky blue? Why do birds sing? And, you kind of have to make up stuff on the fly because you don't want her to think you don't know. So this is called If You Need a Reason, and it's for Adrian. The way things move sometimes, light or air. The distance between 2 points, or a map unfolding on a table, or wind, never mind sadness. The difference between sky and room, between geometry and breath. The sound we hear when 2 opposites finally collide. Smashed bottle, country song, a bell, any bridge, a connection. The way some stories end in the middle of a word. The words themselves. Galaxies, statuaries, perspectives. The stone over stone that is life. Never mind hunger. The way things move, road, mirror, blind luck. The way nothing moves sometimes. A kiss, a glance, never mind true north. The difference between history and desire, between biology and prayer, any light to read by, any voice at the bottom of the stairs, or the sound of your own name softly, a tiny bone breaking near the heart. Thank you.
So it's hard to think that we were here, the 3 of us, 15 years ago, and we did the very first one of these. And we were under a tent. Our speaker was about this big. It was a little pig nose thing, there. I think that's the right term. We have since done 15. And at one of those 15, I think I'm not sure, it was the third or fourth, Campbell McGrath came and did a program with Carol Frost and Rick Campbell. I think Carol's maiden name is Campbell, so we had 3 Campbells on hand. And Campbell drove up. He's been to 3 now. Am I not close enough? Are you? The back. Oh, you can't hear me in the back. Okay. Anyway, I asked Campbell if he would come and introduce his very good friend Michael Hettich. They both hark from Miami in different ways, and I have to introduce the introducer, sort of, you know. He's they have his Florida poems here. He's a MacArthur Fellow and an NEA recipient and a very distinguished poet and author of many, many books. Come up, Campbell, and do your job better than me.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. And thanks, everybody, for bringing us here. I mean, my wife and I, Elizabeth and I, love coming up to Vero Beach from Miami, where we live, because you feel like you've kind of escaped the metroplex of Miami and South Florida by the time you get about to Vero Beach. And, you know, but who would expect that one of the reasons you might be coming to Vero Beach is for the appreciation of poetry. And to that, we certainly owe to Sean. You know, not even just through this organization, which you know, he's created this event for, and which does so many great things, but through the Lenten reading series that you do at the church as well, which is another thing which I read at once for you, and it was almost the very day before the whole world shut down for COVID for 3 years. But anyway, so it's great to be here and to introduce first Michael Hettich, and then I'll come back up and introduce Sean when his turn approaches. You can tell when you're listening to a Michael Hettich poem, when you begin in a meadow, wander into a forest, and end up in a dream. Wait, is it a dream? Or is it a family gathered at a dinner table? Or a circle of angels in a clearing? Or children watching a butterfly emerge from a chrysalis? Over more than a dozen books, Michael Hettich has mastered a lapidary lyrical poem that feels simultaneously deeply real and deeply haunted by realms of consciousness just beyond our reach. The ancient Chinese poet Du Fu observed, about 1,300 years ago, that when you're in the presence of a great poem, it's like being alive twice, because the poet renders the world with such clarity through images that you then get to experience it a second time. So writing is a way of immortalizing the moment, not because the poet is special, but because life is special. And being alive in time is the one thing we all truly share, the universal human truth. As a sidebar, let me say that being here today, with the same lineup from the original 15 years ago, is also a bit like being alive twice. But this time we have less hair and need reading glasses. Michael Hettich was a pillar of the Miami poetry community for decades, a professor at Miami-Dade College, and now lives in Black Mountain, North Carolina, where his poetry has continued to evolve and flourish in unexpected ways, as he has become, in recent years, a grandfather and a widower. When I say his poetry has flourished, in 2023, his new and selected volume, Halo of Bees, came out. I'm pretty sure that's back there on the table. In 2025, A Sharper Silence was published by Terrapin Press, and just this year, a new brief volume called Waking Up Alone, written in the weeks following the tragic death of his wife, Colleen. So please, when you hear Michael read his poems, recognize that you're here and you're also back in ancient China with Du Fu, and you're also in realms even beyond, just beyond the real that we inhabit together. Michael Hettich.
I'm grateful for that introduction. Thank you so much, Campbell. Really wonderful. Wonderful to be here. It's great to see you all. Huge turnout. I'm amazed. Thank you. I was honored to be here 15 years ago, and I'm honored to be here now. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody involved in this program. It's wonderful to be here. I'm very grateful. Thank you. As Campbell mentioned, my new and selected book of poems, The Halo of Bees, came out in 2023. And right as it came out, my wife, Colleen, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So for the next 2 years, which is about how long she survived, I wrote the poems that are gathered in this book called A Sharper Silence. So I want to read poems from that book, this book, A Sharper Silence, today, and that's where the book comes from. And again, I'm grateful, and I will start with a poem called Unspoken. Unspoken. First, before I start, can you hear me, Sarah? A little more? A little louder? Okay, how about that? Is that better? Okay, this is called Unspoken. Lately, I've been discovering wind in places I least expect it. The drawer where I keep my summer shirts, or the basement when I go down to bring out the folding summer chairs. It's a sudden puff or flurry, a tiny explosion of memory against my face. It makes me stop breathing for a moment. But where does the wind, any wind, come from? Is it like language emerging from cries and chortles into a forest full of paths and grottos, mushrooms and berries we could survive on if we had to? Luckily, we don't have to do that. At least not yet. And we don't even know the names of all the insects that live there, or the tiny orchids that push up through the marl in the root crotches down by the creek and nod in the wind that sweeps across the ground, or the moss that stays wet all summer, glowing even on the days when the sun stays hidden, like the wind in the album of photographs of you as a young person, waving at the camera to turn away, look elsewhere, let me comb my hair and put on nicer clothes to catch me for the future in the moment I was beautiful. This wind is like a secret self, the self that got dressed up and smiled but was never captured. Inside your body, another kind of wind, full of everything you never did, all you have forgotten now, glittering like dust motes, or the wings of bees as they land in the blossoms and poke around, quivering with what might look like joy. Thank you. Delicate bones. She called to say there was a snake in the bedroom, nothing to be scared of, just a little guy. She said I should come home and see it before it slipped into a closet or under the floorboards. It looked harmless, she said, and very beautiful. When she texted pictures, I couldn't help noticing the bulge halfway down the snake's body, a mouse or even a chipmunk. And indeed, the snake was a beauty. Then she said it had slipped away already. I hope it's not hiding in a drawer or the dirty clothes hamper. I'd told her, I'm sure, my brother had a boa constrictor as a boy. Our mother helped him feed it once a month with laboratory rats she got from the Cancer Research Center in town. It took the whole month for the lump in the snake to move from the front to the back, then out. By then, just delicate bones, scrubbed clean. My brother watched that snake while he lay in his bed, recovering from cancer. He'd been stitched up along the back of his head, a bit like those test rats. The thread was black, and the stitches looked sloppy, like a badly mended baseball. I remember how wide the snake opened its mouth as the dazed rat just seemed to walk in. Okay, those. Oh, thank you. Thank you. If you're going to clap, thank you. I mean, those poems are from the early part of the book, and as I go through further through the book, it's kind of chronological in that the poems toward the end of the book are more about what we were facing together in a more overt or straightforward way, as compared to the earlier ones, which I've just read, which were more, more metaphoric, I guess you could call it. So this one is called A Sharper Shadow. A sharper shadow. Sometimes when we sit without talking for a while, the light seems to fall through the trees with a different sense of itself. I feel something of the tenuous, even in our silence, as though we were counting our breaths, preparing ourselves to let go of each other, maybe sooner than we know. This ache feels more deeply interfused than love, though of course it is love too. It casts a sharper shadow than love, even love that lasts a lifetime. It's like a map of being, deeply etched wood grain, or the way snow falls into an unmown field through the stillness of an afternoon. Something in the light moves into the shape of things and changes their contours as dusk rises to meet the sky. Dusk rises to meet the sky. And the snow falls all night to glow in the morning, trackless but shadowed by the gently blowing grasses which lean down sometimes to draw circles in the powder and sometimes stand still as if waiting. Thank you. Angels in the trees. My wife drapes her drying dresses across the mountain laurel branches. She forgets them all night. And in the morning, walking out, she thinks for a moment she sees a choir of angels standing at the edge of the woods, watching her. But it's only her dresses, half full of dew and smelling clean as snow. Her most beautiful dress hangs deeper in the woods, higher in the branches. We wonder how it got there. As I prop a ladder inside the flurry of twigs and leaves, climb up and carefully carry it down. It's covered now in tiny inchworms, so we hang it in the sun and watch them slip to the ground on their strands of glinting filament. Then she puts it on. This dress I bought her when we were still almost children. She'd stopped and gasped when she saw it in the shop window. It fit perfectly then. But she looks even more beautiful now, all these years later, as she walks around the garden, smiling at the new flowers, barefoot in the sun. Thank you. Another Angels poem called The Angels. As day turned to dusk, we sensed we could feel the people we'd loved and lost, calling like a breeze that suggests itself, but never actually awakens the trees. She told me again about the moment she decided to let our first child go so she could go on living herself. And I remembered how once, as a young man, I'd walked by myself for a day until I was lost and came to a boulder and a creek. She remembered yearning to comfort our baby after we'd scattered her ashes. And I remembered that the sun had been warm. The sound of the creek had filled me with something as different from thought or song as a dream. She said she still dreamed of Audrey, our lost child. And then I told her again that when dusk fell, a clutch of black birds landed. Even when I stood up and gestured there in that unfamiliar landscape, they refused to fly away. I think they were hungry, but I had nowhere else to go. So I lay down under stars so sharp in that darkness, they hurt my eyes, even when my eyes were closed. All night, those black birds stood watching, waiting for something. Like angels, she said then, and laughed, though I don't think she was joking. Thank you. I'm going to close this reading with selections from a longer poem that is one of the closing poems in the book. I'll read just a few selections. And as you all, I'm sure, know, Hurricane Helene hit western North Carolina. What was it? End of September 2025, and it devastated the area, and it devastated where we live, our road, etc. So I wrote a longer poem about the experience because other things were going on between Colleen and me at that time, and she wasn't doing that well then either. So I'll just read 2 or 3 sections from the book, from that poem, and I'll close with that. And thank you all for listening. The poem is called A Strange Sort of Wonder. When the storm had passed, a stillness filled the day with a quiet deeper than silence, like the sound of blood when we're sleeping, or dreams when we wake. Then it moved off into the trees like an echo of an even deeper silence. As many of the big trees, oaks mostly, sighed and let themselves fall into each other's arms like lovers, to lie across roads, cars, and houses, while the rivers kept swelling, taking bridges and businesses, turning roads into rapids that swept cars and families away. One day, the world was familiar. The next, it was utterly changed, or just gone. And that silence persisted in the ways we moved and talked to each other, in the language we used with ourselves when we were alone. The nights were so dark beyond the houses, up in the broken woods, and down in the folds and hollows of the mountains, out on the swept-away farms. We lost power and water. The roads were washed out. Dozens of big trees had fallen near the house, but our house itself was undamaged. We felt lucky, of course, but we couldn't get out except on foot. We knew we couldn't do that, and we knew we'd soon have to. Colleen was weak from chemo. She'd had a pleura drain installed a few days before, so I could drain her lungs when they filled with liquid. It was an intimate, delicate, potentially disastrous procedure that required all tools, especially hands, to be germ-free. A challenge, to say the least, without clean water. We had a creek down the hill and some 5-gallon jugs, hand sanitizer. We cooked on the grill. Evenings, we sat out, talked softly, listened to the night creatures sing, and marveled at how quickly so much we had taken for granted and loved without thinking about it was gone. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you all.
So I will once again call Campbell to the old trodden path.
I didn't really need, I'm sorry about that, Sean. I didn't need you to come up here to tell me to come up to introduce you. I should have gotten ahead of that one. If you know that it's a Michael Hettich poem, When You Wander Into a Dream, then you know it is a Sean Sexton poem, When the Cattle Start Lowing. It's hard to imagine somebody with a life as full as Sean's taking the time to write poems. I mean, does he do it on horseback? How does it fit with the very busy agenda of the life he lives? But he does, and so we get to share that range of experience with him just as we did Michael's range of experience through tragedy and through happiness as well, because the sights and textures of the poet's life, their thoughts and dreams and beliefs are the commonality. As I once wrote about Sean's book Descent in a blurb in the back, it shares with us that rarest of music, the sound the world makes. Indeed, the sound the world makes includes the wind in the cabbage palms and owls in the barn and calves calling for their mothers. Poetry, I mean to say, is common ground, and few poets are more grounded than Sean Sexton. And the territory he covers extends from conception to death, from peacock eggs to hospice rooms. His writing is full of earthly detail and human conviction. He's certainly the only person I know, both a poet and a cowboy, and almost certainly the only person alive who is both a Renaissance man and a Florida man. In 1821, the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley wrote that poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world, which wasn't true then, is certainly not true now, and I doubt was really ever true anywhere in a literal sense. Nonetheless, I sometimes daydream that there is an alternate universe out there in which the President of the United States is none other than Sean Sexton. I think that's an America we would all vote for. Unfortunately, only Spider-Man gets to explore the multiverse, and we are stuck with this one. But anyway, as far as I know, poets have never wanted that kind of power. They are simply too busy living their lives and transforming it into poetry to share with us, as our host and benefactor, Sean Sexton, will now do.
I'll never agree to be president. I just look at what that means with who is or who have been, and no way. I'm going to do a little trip through, how am I doing? Am I doing good with the sound? Can you hear me? I'm a little closer. It's hard. I got to, it's like that thing, will the real Toulouse-Lautrec stand up? And then it's like, I'm just going to try to yell, like calling cows. Come on, come on. I'm doing a little travel back in time. Hang on a minute. Let me get my timekeeper. Make sure. We've got a lot of things to do, and so I cannot waste time. This is from early married days with my wife Sharon of 45 years. Can you imagine? It's called domesticity. Slowly, with certain regularity, we get done what we ought. Eventually, after 3 litters of multicolored kittens, we spay the cat, repair the door, change burnout bulbs, divide the children's room, buy new tires for the car, and somehow pay the bills, keeping a pace of our domesticity. A step ahead of the banker, a moment behind convention, you may be sure, putting off heaven and hell for as long as possible. And this is called This Morning. These are all from my first volume that was ever published. This morning, the last Sunday of the year in the church hour, while the children are away, cattle fed, and chickens turned out in the yard, we fill the wood box of the stove, shut off the lights, close all the doors of the house, and let ourselves back into Eden. How fair are its gates, how lovely the foliage, and warm the light, and you, my one companion and soul's delight. Thank you. So I got an art fellowship in '01, and we went to Paris. And I wrote about it. We had a hard time. We fought our way through the city of love, and we could just talk about that the rest of you don't want to do that, though. I don't want to do that. Paris, sweet. The way here is exacting, requires a certain discomfort and lack of sleep. On the plane, we examine French currency, bills exchanged for our money at a bank in Palm Beach. There is a buying and a selling price. We hold the notes against the overhead light, see images of great artists, composers, architects, and writers, Cézanne on money, Debussy, Eiffel, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry and his Little Prince also. Sharon sleeps all afternoon, the day of our arrival, as I go about town with a headache, half lost, paying the French their money with trepidation. They know more about it than I. I am not eager to spend my Cézannes. I've got okay, here we go. This is, the next book, we went through our losing our parents and the inevitable thing, that we had parents to lose, and it was a terrible thing. It started early and then kept on. And this is, the first one is a poem to my dad called Shirts, a reprise. And now I come to wear your clothes, shirts that no longer fit, you barely wore in the end, arranged in piles to divide and sort, of 3 sizes, which was the measure of you. I'll accustom my taste to them, necessarily choose their cuts and colors, assimilate snaps wishing for buttons, unbegrudge a missing inch of sleeve, and draw your skin upon mine, assuming your hide, pattern, and hue. Dawn this sudden wealth, overwhelming my life, this unbidden inheritance, now become shrouds of the everyday. And another called, it's not the listless woods these days, their ongoing summer song, same as a year-round sound in my head. Nor the thick bottomless mud in gateways, hard as winter to cross, or the next unbridling rain, wrung from any torporous hour, dark, light, morning, night, not the suffocating breath in the sun-soaked air, but you. 4 years gone comes September, like a whole calf crop, one quick day, with only us to say you were here at all. Thank you. Thank you. We have children in the Pacific Northwest, and we went to visit them on Salvi Island, where they grow the most beautiful dahlias. And after we were in that farmland and seeing all that country, we went to an island called St. John's. It's also across a bridge, across a waterway. And when we were there, I had this feeling that suddenly I asked myself the question, I'm the steward, I'm always in the same place, and by design, by my life, by even my preference. But I suddenly thought, when I turned a corner and I saw something happened, and this is called elsewhere. Suddenly you turn a corner and shining off a green lawn beneath vivid sky, and elsewhere, reflecting from windows or shadowed within lurid depths, through the door to a place you could live. Here are trees, hedges, and forms along the walkway, a neighborhood that seems familiar, a horizon you'd know in the dark, and land in your dreams. Have you wakened each day in the wrong morning, and the leaves, fruits, and pods in the streets fallen year upon year without you, on byways to places you might have gone? Is this the fragrance of your life? It's true light in your eyes and coolness on your face. Is this where you should have been, all the while you were elsewhere? Thank you. The title poem of this book, "May Darkness Restore," continues in that time, moving along, in our lives moving along, poem book by poem book. It's may darkness restore. May darkness restore our youth to these hands. Life has kept our love in arrears. Time will take us to faraway lands. Your love has made me a changed man. You've fed my hunger, allayed my fears. May darkness restore my youth to your hands. I feel your skin, your sweet demands. Open your arms, draw me near. Time will take us to unforeseen lands. As beauty is lost, as troubles expand, the night will help us find each other, and darkness restore youth to our hands. I know your secrets, I know your plans. Beyond our dreams, beyond these years, time will take us to faraway lands. To hold you now and understand, to grasp your feet, to smell your hair, may darkness restore our youth to these hands and light our path through terrible lands. Thank you. And this is anniversary, and it was an experience in the Pacific Northwest at a place we stayed. And I woke up and wrote this. Anniversary. No matter we drew the curtains, the waking breeze opens and folds them like the sea. And though we welcome the dark, morning bids its departure through every window, every door. We were but children when we met. Now silver gathers in your hair like a dusting of snow on the mountains in June. Thank you. Right now, we're coming out of our worst day of the year was the first day of February, the worst day of the winter, and the best day was the last, and we got 1.25 inches of rain. And in between those times, we ordered a load of hay to take up the slack. And when we wind up with hay in the pasture, it always makes a spot. And This is sort of a contemplation on hay spots that wind up there. They usually give you weeds and create sort of a place where nothing will grow. And so sometimes we burn those hay spots. And this was written, Alfred Korn took note, on the day of the Feast of the Annunciation. How he knew that, I have no idea. Undoing a measure of waste made in winter's dire, as we ill afford a burnt place upon the season's pale green face, and set remains afire, whereupon all season cows gathered in hay parties, cavorting in unison, ruining bales like young planets seized on delivery, ripping the air with their dry grass coughs, fodder and manure, and hard trodden water fattened into sloughs, roll upon roll set on the andirons of dirt after Ash Wednesday and Lent. And drought came and went. They disappeared like laughter. Now we send a flame walking across cobbled ground to free the battened covering, waken vernal drowsing, and let new again be found. Thank you. And so I got to do a cow poem, right? I mean, after that introduction, this is a difficult poem. I'm not gonna kid you. It's called "Eating the Heifer." Sharon's saying, "No, don't do that." No. Eating the heifer, heart, tongue, tripe, the brown liver and kidneys grown and picked from her dark garden like varieties of fruit, striped, pebbled, and squared stacks of knuckle, rib, and tail come shrink-wrapped and quick frozen by the abattoir, as if they devised her into large pieces of candy. And unblinking eyes of bone set in penumbras of flesh, sectioned like saw logs with guardian halos of fat, seeming atmospheres of a fresh sliced planet. There is all her fear in our teeth, toughness they couldn't kill, sent home in 6 coolers. Her inbred anxiety shot through at the end, redeemed for chewing, and how she balked at every gate we set for her like malicious gods. Only the liver, marrow, and sweetbreads in the autonomic heart remain pliant, sovereign from harm, tender as forgiveness. We take her in, savoring every part, bisques, roast, tartar, jerks and grinds, sop her juices like spring melt from mountainside seeps, soaking attendant carrots, spuds, and onions as easily she joins back to the roots of creation, becomes nourishment and medicine, our peace and succor. Midwife made of meat, she births us backward through hunger, her last poem spoken every swallow, as she increases and grows in us, very things we devour, chine and cartilage, blood and cell. There is no greater magic in the world than this, to chew of her the forbs, legumes, and delicacies her mother taught her in the bright morning, the shade sweetened lea. Masticate the light, imbibe the rain, smell the evening mist rising from the cauldron as she steams and softens in the kitchen air. Listen to her singing to the fire from the grate, arias of the earth's original music, born of this world, making again into something new. One last one. This is from it's the new book, the new thing. Am I okay, Sarah? Okay, but be fast, right? Be quick. This is called Elysium. I'm ready like Basho to turn away from beauty today, as he once refused to consider Mount Fuji stark in the distance, one more time, and not to be bothered by the ineluctable. A dreariness rests inside I can't waken and send packing. There's been too much brilliance of late, far too many exquisite things lingering from the weekend trip to an art exhibition of a friend's life's work filling the walls of an entire museum, lovely conversation at dinner with lovely people, and inane wandering on Saturday morning roads leading to John Ringling's Palace of Art. There, a regular barrage of humanly impossible, fully realized virtuosity, contained as if it were all in a butterfly house, full of lovely appendages, glorious raiment, tropical fingers, and divine envisagements, kept inside heavy glass doors, 2 sets of them, for entry and departure, and crossing a blue chasm on the Skyway Bridge above the vast bay a medieval Spaniard would have to die to behold. At the summit, golden rays shining, gilding the distance through radiant bands, keeping us unwittingly aloft as we drove on toward Elysium. Where does one go from there? The ordinary pasture disappears in haze this hour, at least comprehensible, simplified, as Basho would speak of the 8 views of Lake Omi in a single poem, saying, "Mist hid 7 when I heard Miidera's bell." And true to such moment, a calf's complaint issues sudden, invisible, receiving no answer, and small ruin takes place, restoring something as I close my eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to do one round of applause for all 3 of these amazing poets. And inevitably, there are a few more announcements. First is that Michael Hettich is actually doing a poetry workshop tomorrow morning. So if you just have not had enough, some of you are already signed up for that, but if you would like to attend that, we do still have room. So if you'd like to come, it's at 9:30 tomorrow morning. I would suggest that you see Ren at the front desk about signing up. We'd love to have you there. And then the poets' books are for sale in the back of the room. I'm going to suggest that you all stay here, let people purchase, and then if you'd like to come up and have your book signed, bring them up here. Speaking of Ren at the front desk, she did not want to come in, even though I encouraged her to do so. But I'd like to give a round of applause that's so loud she can hear it from the front desk. Truly does the lion's share of work for this event, and we couldn't do it without her. And a couple other people I want to recognize. We have some really dedicated volunteers, like any organization like ours needs, and a few who really also contributed so much to this event, all of whom really prefer to remain anonymous, but we're going to give them a round of applause anyway. And lastly, 2 more people who don't get to be anonymous. We did have a committee that put this event together. Sean led the committee, but we also had 2 other board members who were on it, and that was Susie McDaniel and Nick in the back there. We'd like to, yes, thank you. Nick Samuel. All right. We are now ready to go eat some barbecue and have some fun. Not that that wasn't fun, but, a little looser, gooser, more fun. As I said, we're going to leave this room. We're going to go out the back. If you want to get a drink at the bar, do that. You can come back in and get one, but they're all set up out there. The food's going to be amazing, and there's no assigned seats. Sit wherever you like and enjoy.